Yes, indeed, folks. I be shillin' as well as I be illin' here on Blue Please on WoW Radio and WCRadio.com. Soldiering on through the show, suffering fatigue and blurred vision. I'll be fine. Yes. The nice, crisp mountain air.
In the mountains.
Yes, that will keep me awake. Right, so that was an ad for buff.net, yeah, buffd.net, and they're going to be our sponsors for BlizzCon. And I'm going to talk a bit about them, but I'm also going to talk about the sort of sad state of affairs of cross-promotion and the fragmented WoW community. Now, the idea behind buff.net is buff.net is basically Dig for WoW. Yeah, you should be familiar with dig.com, I'd imagine. Buff.net is the same kind of principle, but it's all WoW talk. So the idea is you can get all of your WoW news in one place, and you can find all the cool stuff without having to go out of your way to get to it. Now, the reason I like this, and the reason that I'm willing to put my seal of approval and weight behind it, is because the WoW community has utterly, totally lacked anything like this before. Yet they lack a central hub of cross-promotion, and as a direct result, what we have is a totally fragmented community, and a player base that is utterly and disgustingly uninformed. They really are. I mean, sickeningly uninformed. As in, we've got a bunch of players, a massive number of players, that wouldn't know what Wowhead was if we hit them in the face with it. Yeah? They don't know where to find boss strategies. They don't know how to look up basic stuff. I mean, we've got guys on the forums who ask the same questions over and over and over again. It's because they don't even know where to find the answers. It's pathetic. Now, you would think, of course, that between the massive amount of material that comes out of the fan side program, that the player base would be genuinely clued into what's going on. They're not. That's the really sad thing about it. It comes down to the awful thing. Right? Here's an example of the real situation that is actually afflicting most fan sites at the moment. I'm talking about the official registered fan sites, as well as a number of the unofficial ones, which includes WoW podcasts, WoW movie makers, WoW bloggers, all kinds of things like that. Yep. If we get a front page on worldofwarcraft.com, you would think that that would be a big coup, right? You'd think that, hey, that's a massive site, we get a load of attention. Or maybe on the front page of woweurope.com. When we did an interview with Insidia, yeah, only 10% of the obviously 100% of referrals that we got, only 10% of those referrals came from worldofwarcraft.com. The other 90% came from Insidia.com. Yeah? Now, Insidia.com is nowhere near as big a site as worldofwarcraft.com, you would think. Yet, you'd be surprised. We get a lot of stuff posted on the front page there, and we don't get any attention from it. And this goes for any fan site. So, in reality, the idea of getting yourself on the front page of worldofwarcraft.com and thinking, hey, that's the best thing since sliced bread, that's really going to launch whatever it is creative work that I've put together, it's not true, sadly. It really isn't. And the worst thing is, there really is nowhere in the community right now, fan site or otherwise, where that can actually happen. The stuff that gets really successful within the World of Warcraft community tends to happen for random reasons. Yeah? For instance, yeah, Nim's work. You know about Nim. Nim was the guy who did all those parody songs on YouTube. He didn't get popular as a result of, say, Warcraft movies or anything else like that. He just happened to get popular through YouTube. That's just what happened. And YouTube is not a promotional source for WoW material by any stretch of the imagination. It just happened to happen. There's a bunch of videos that you see happen to get really popular that way, and yet a bunch of really good machinima that just doesn't get anywhere. Same with WoW podcasts. You've got the most popular WoW podcast at the moment, which you're probably familiar with, is The Instance. Yeah, they're the most single popular downloaded podcast, yeah? Obviously, our shows are not too far behind, and combined with our station, we blow everything else out of the water, listener base-wise, but they got popular because they launched it off the back of an already popular site. Now, as regards to WoW podcasts, you may be aware, of course, that I've been a bit militant on this, but to be honest, it only really comes down to the fact that I like quality material, and I don't find a lot of it in the WoW podcast community, and that's sad. You know, the podcast that I listen to on a regular basis, WoW-wise, I listen to a bit of Inside Azeroth, which is pretty cool. I listen to stuff that the Dead Workers Party does. Admittedly, not all of their stuff's WoW-based anymore. I also listen to Rawcast. Yeah, I think they're pretty good. And I listen to World of Warcraft. Those are the 4 podcasts that I can actually tolerate. And no offense to everyone else, but I've listened to the other WoW podcasts and they're not very good. They're not to my standards. Yeah? And I think the real problem with that is that there isn't a central resource for WoW podcasters, or indeed any WoW media creator of any sort, to come together and cross-promote their stuff. Now, this also spreads into something that you probably care a little bit more about, and that's the dissemination of news. Yeah? New stuff. Now, of course, you can probably reel off a couple of sites where you get most of your news from. MMO Champion, prime example. World of Raids. Some of you maybe read WoW.com or whatever. WorldofWar.net, BlizzPlanet. Yeah, BlizzPlanet's good for the sort of wider reading within the Blizzard community. Say stuff like the books and the comics and all of the other wider merchandise stuff and the expanded universe. BlizzPlanet's really good for that, and of course Medieval Dragon is very, very good at what he does. But you think about it, and it's like, well, does any of these sites really provide everything? And the answer really is no. WoW.com is probably the closest you're going to get to a complete news source. The problem is, it's a blog, and it's not very accurate half the time. I mean, everyone knows that I've had spats with WoW.com in the past for whatever reason. But the real issue right now that I have with WoW.com, and I think there's an awful lot, from what I've heard anyway, of other sites and podcasters and creators and celebrities and personalities within the WoW community that have a problem with WoW.com, is the fact that it is just a blog, and they are rather prone to inaccuracy. And the problem is that inaccuracy then spreads to the rest of the community. So if they say something, and it's just a blogger's opinion, but of course they state it as fact, then a bunch of other people start believing it. They take it as gospel. It's kind of sucky. That and the fact that WoW.com's not very good at sourcing their material. They don't properly credit the people they take their news from. I mean, there was the incident a wee while ago, actually, that involved TankSpot, if you remember correctly. They took a video from TankSpot and didn't bother to credit them. And then when TankSpot got a little bit upset about it, one of their co-editors, and that's his WoW.com's co-editors, went on a hissy fit and called them all a bunch of elitists. Yeah, that's really the kind of attitude we want to foster within the WoW community. Slash spit on that, quite frankly. So yeah, getting your news from a single source that is controlled by a single group of people is very unhealthy, particularly when they get opinionated. You know, we've got even sites like MMO Champion, as good as they are not 100% unbiased by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, we've got BB right now claiming that the new Alliance race and the new Horde race are going to be Worgen and Goblin, and is so certain of that he's willing to run through the streets of Paris naked if he's wrong. So one would assume he probably has inside information, but again, that could just be an opinion to pull people to the site. You don't know what people's ulterior motives are in this case. Now, to me, that's why buff.net is actually so important, and why people should start using it. The WoW community, as a result of these sites being all over the place, and as a result of... It's not so much that Blizzard doesn't cross-promote properly, I don't think they've actually got the power to do so. I mean, you look at the fan site program right now, and they run the gamut. They really do. And I don't think any of the fan sites can genuinely say we owe our success and our popularity to Blizzard. In the sense of, hey, Blizzard promoted us and we got big. No, not even close. In WoW Radio, for instance, didn't get popular because Blizzard promoted us. Heck, for a year and a half we were blacklisted for whatever reason. Curse didn't get popular for that reason. WoW Wiki didn't get popular for that reason. All of the fan sites. Not a chance. That's not why they were successful. Blizzard just doesn't have the power, from what I can tell at the moment, because their website doesn't get as many views as you might think. So what you need is a community-driven source of news which will allow people to submit and discover new sources of information. Now, blogs are particularly good for this, but again, I've had issues with blogs because some of them I like, some of them I don't. I haven't found a genuinely good blog that I would actually stick with that provides good news and comment on the World of Warcraft. Not at all. I haven't found one. I don't know, maybe I'm just looking in the wrong place, but what I can tell you is that, say, if somebody submitted an article to buff.net, and it was a good article, and I had a read of it, and a lot of people had said, hey, this is a good article, and there was a good discussion going on in the comment section, I would be likely to subscribe to that blog. Whereas right now, the only WoW blog I subscribe to is cwsargaris.com. And that's not even a news site. That's just comedy. That is great comedy, don't get me wrong, but it is just comedy. So, I think what is very important within the WoW community right now is to make sure that the populace is generally educated and generally up on what's going on. And they are not susceptible to the smoke and mirror strategies that come out of Blizzard these days. You've got to bear in mind that right now, Blizzard is driven by Activision, and they are perhaps more commercially motivated than they used to be. You know, every company's a company, we know that, and every company's objectives are to make money. But in the situation that we're in right now, it's perhaps a little bit more than it used to be with Blizzard. Now, Activision's a bigger company than Blizzard. Activision is a publicly traded company. It's driven by the shareholders. The shareholders want to see results. They want to see quick returns on their investments. They're not necessarily so concerned about consumer goodwill. It's unfortunate. So, every now and again we get some crazy stuff that comes out from Blizzard that I see as smoke and mirrors. Like this whole Worgen and freaking Goblin thing. I'll talk about that a lot later on in the show in detail, but I see that as actual deliberate placement. I don't believe Blizzard is stupid enough to accidentally put something in the files that other people could quite easily data mine. I think this is just yet another piece of smoke and mirrors. Now, we've got 3.2 coming out, which is there is a massive selection of issues that I have with 3.2, and you've heard them in the previous shows. I think 3.2 is one of the worst looking patches I've seen in a while, aside from the Isle of Conquest, which looks genuinely fantastic, and the 5-man. I'm thinking the raid content looks pretty bad. The raid content is looking incredibly disappointing, and we know what the special little drop-in we have for this raid content is.
Not one, but 2 Jormungandr worms.
It's the universal drop-in of phoning it in, folks. Phoning it in with the 3.2. And what do we hear about? We're not hearing all of the critique. We're not getting all of this information and this news and this discussion and comment and debate coming in from the community saying, hey, Blizzard, this is not acceptable. This is not an acceptable level of content. It's been like 4 months since Ulduar came out. It's probably going to be 5 before this content comes out. You're telling me that in 5 months this is the best you could come up with? Now that is something that I would expect millions of players to be shouting from the rooftops, but it just doesn't happen. And it doesn't happen because what you've got is a population that is genuinely underinformed. Why are they underinformed? Because they're not getting their news from a good location. You've got some people that get everything from WoW.com and they're just accepting whatever opinion the blogger happens to have today. You've got some people who get all their information from MMO Champion, and yes, they'll know quite a lot about some of the upcoming content, but they won't know anything else. It's like people just don't go out of their way to research things these days. The amount of stupid things you see on the forums, it's obvious that people don't research properly. They don't know their facts, and that makes them ineffectual. Now, I think that Buff.net is a great opportunity for media creators as well as commentators within the WoW community to come together and cross-promote in a friendly competition. I'm not expecting the WoW radio listener base to go after WoW.com or whatever, and I'm not going to go after them either. I don't hold personal grudge against this site. I just happen to think that people should take everything they say with a pinch of salt, because at the end of the day, they're only doing what I'm doing. They're not a definitive news source. I've never pretended to be a definitive news source. This isn't a news program. This isn't a news network. If you're getting all your news from WoW Radio, then the chances are that unless you're listening to the BlizzCon footage, of course, you are horribly behind. What you're getting here is comment, discussion, debate, punditry. And that's fine as long as you take it with a pinch of salt. It would be good to see a lot more voices added to the debate. More bloggers, more podcasters, getting their podcasts out there for other people to listen to, and of course, opening them up to constructive criticism to improve their work. And I will happily provide that as long as you have a skin that is at least thicker than a piece of paper. Not a big fan of people that can't deal with criticism there. And it's just unfortunate that it's taken this long for something like that to happen. The WoW community is all over the place, let's face it. There's nothing that really unites them other than the fact that they all play WoW. Now, I'm not suggesting that the entire place comes together and holds hands and sings Kumbaya around a campfire. No. There is a lot of people whose hands, quite frankly, I would not want to take hold of. The unwashed masses, as it were. Not a big fan of those people. But what I would like to see is some intelligent discourse outside of, say, the elitist jerks forums. And you don't see an awful lot of that, and that is really sad. I would like to see the idiots on the WoW forums become the minority as an influx of educated people come in, having read all of this stuff on, say, Buff.net. Because it's all there. The community is submitting good articles. It is hunting everything down. It is creating a nexus, as it were, for cross-promotion, and a nexus for the confluence of information. News dissemination. Accuracy. If you post BS, you'll get called out on it. Not a question about that. And that's a good thing. Quality control is something that lacks within the WoW community in general, whether or not it be in fansites, podcasts, machinima, whatever. Whatever is produced, whatever is said, there's a lack of quality control, there is a lack of vetting, and I believe this site can actually help. And yes, hey, we're getting paid to promote them. You know that right off the bat, but let's face it, have we ever promoted anything that sucked? Didn't think so. Not a chance. You're listening to WoW Radio. My name is Tall Biscuit. This is Blue Please. This is vodka. Enjoy.